Good evening, everybody. Welcome to our show, Pittsburgh Sportsline. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody. We have a great show, except we're running a little short-handed, and you got the two best conversationalists here. You got Chip Hamer and Al Levine, the talking machine. So we're going to try to cover for a while. I'll give you the report. Big Mike decided to start celebrating Thanksgiving a little bit earlier. So that'll be why he's not here. Smoking Jim Frazier, I guess with all the holiday shopping and traffic, he'll be a little bit late. I just got the inside word from our great cameraman, Matt. He said Smoking Jim has entered the building. So if we break the commercial after maybe Chip and I start talking a little bit, then we'll get him on board here. So that's a little heads up. If the producers, Devin and Aaron, want to tell us when to go to commercial, we'll have Matt give us that signal. So a little inside talk on a live show, folks, so we appreciate you listening and putting up with us. And we start our segment with What's on Our Mind. And since Chip's here, what's on your mind, Chip?
Yeah, thanks, Alan. Good evening, everybody. Several things are on my mind this evening, and the first is the commissioner of the National Football League, Roger Goodell, has decided to make more of a mockery out of his ability to adjudicate players, because yesterday he decided that he was going to suspend Ed Reed for repeated egregious offenses as hitting to the head. Okay, because he's a repeat offender and he won't stop doing it, he felt that it was important enough to suspend him for one game before even this past weekend's games were all completed. And generally he doesn't do that till Thursday. So he went ahead and did that, and Ed Reed decided that he was going to go ahead and appeal his decision, because he appeals his decision to the Lord himself. So he went to New York and he appealed his decision, and Roger Goodell rescinded his suspension, which would have cost Ed Reed $400,000, which is one game's paycheck, and decided that he would just fine him for $50,000 with no explanation as to why. So this egregious repeat offender, for whatever reason, is now not so egregious, or maybe he's not even a repeat offender. But for whatever reason, Roger Goodell thought that it was okay to rescind his suspension, and I think that's a bunch of horse manure. He didn't do it to anybody that was in the black and gold. And I think one thing I'd like to remind Mr. Goodell is that Goodell is spelled with two O's, not one. The next
nice point there, Chip. I can't disagree with you either. I'd like to, but I agree with you on that.
And then the next person on my chopping block would have to be the commissioner of Major League Baseball, Bud Selig. Bud Selig is making a mockery of the commissionership in Major League Baseball in a number of different ways. First, what he's allowed to have happen with the Miami Marlins is a joke. I can't believe that he hasn't stepped in and stopped this from happening. What the Miami Marlins did, and specifically Jeff Loria, the owner of the Miami Marlins, is he pleaded with the public figures down in Miami to help him build him a new stadium, and I will bring you a winner. So he promised them he'd bring in 3 million people into their brand new stadium. So they ponied up and they built him a brand new stadium, and he spent a couple of $100 million bringing in all this high-priced talent. He brought in a proven winner manager, Ozzie Guillen, who promptly decided to alienate the entire fan base by telling the world how much he admired Fidel Castro. Now, the only problem with this is that the Miami Marlins Stadium was built in Little Havana, that section of Miami, which didn't go off well, and all the money that he spent on these players and a manager got the Miami Marlins a last-place finish last year. So what does Jeff Loria decide to do this year is he decides to ship all the players that he bought last year off to other teams, blow up the team completely, and drop his team's payroll down to $34 million for the 2012 season, the 2013 season. Now, if you think about that, Alex Rodriguez makes $29.5 million this year. So now the Miami Marlins, whose team payroll is $23 million less than the lowest next team in Major League Baseball, That's going to be their opening day payroll. Now, the team with the next lowest payroll would happen to be the Oakland A's. Now, isn't that amazing how the team with the next to the lowest payroll in baseball, the Oakland A's, could be the same Oakland A's that beat the high-priced Texas Rangers for the West Division title and made the playoffs last year? Shocking. But here's the next thing that, the commissioner sits by and allows this to happen. Now, what about the people in Miami? What about the promises made to the politicians down there? What about all those public funds that were used to build a stadium that nobody's going to go to this year? This is somewhere where the commissioner needed to step in, and he said, I'm going to analyze the situation, and he did that for 5 days, and then he said, well, I'm going to let the trade stand, and I'm going to continue to monitor it. Well, great job, Bud. You're doing a great job of monitoring it. The next thing that I'd like to blast Bud Selig for is his drug policy, okay? Because this is another shining example of complete failure on Bud Selig's part. Last year there was 2 players. One of them was Melky Cabrera, played for the Giants, and Bartolo Colon was pitching for the A's. Both of them tested positive for performance-enhancing drugs, and these players didn't even they didn't even appeal their suspensions. They said, I'll take the 50-game suspension. And because it's such a deterrent for them using these performance-enhancing drugs, what's ultimately ended up happening is Bartolo Colon, who made $3 million last year, now has a contract signed by the A's that doubles his salary for this year. And Melky Cabrera signed a contract that doubled his salary from last year. And the problem that they've got here is what these players are using for performance-enhancing drugs, and it raises their testosterone level. And basically it's a cream that can be applied to the skin, and within 24 hours after application, it disappears and it's undetectable. So the players say, okay, oops, I got caught, but that's not going to stop me from cheating. And a 50-game suspension, I'll take 50 games standing on my head, because I know when I come back I can continue to do the same thing and I will be rewarded for my cheating. The drug program is a farce. The punishment system should be much more severe. I would think the first offense with the PEDs should be a minimum of a 1-year suspension. And then they should have their salaries frozen. You have to put something with more teeth in it, or even better yet, you get caught using performance-enhancing drugs. How about a lifetime ban? Maybe that would stop some of these players from doing this kind of stuff. And you need to do better testing more frequently, and you can't give them 3 months' notice that they're going to be tested in spring training and then maybe once or twice during the season, because that will just allow them to continue to cheat. So, Bud, your drug policy is a joke, just like you are. I think what baseball needs is a commissioner that actually is going to do something. At least, Goodell makes headlines. I mean, he's judge, jury, executioner, and he's the appellate judge. So he's got a great position that the owners have given him. And last but not least, it's Thanksgiving weekend. And, I used to think back when I was a child growing up, and even in my teen years, right around Thanksgiving weekend, you'd always see like the Pitt-Penn State rivalry happen, or the backyard brawl. So one of the things that the administrators at Pitt did when, the Penn State series went out back in the early 80s, thanks to Joe Paterno. But, Pitt has decided, well, we really don't need to do anything to appease our fans, because, we're really packing Heinz Field on a regular basis. So we're going to cut out the most popular game they play every year, the backyard brawl, which went on for 105 years. I used to look forward to watching that game. Even if Pitt and West Virginia didn't do anything like both those teams are doing this year, they would draw some interest,
right? And
you would put fannies in the seats. But we're not interested in doing that. I think shame on Pitt, and I wish the backyard brawl was back. That was quite a bit, but that's what's on my mind, Alan.
I don't even have anything left on my mind. You covered all the stuff I like too, and I'm putting the first vote in. I don't know if your hat's in the ring, but for Commissioner of Baseball. I'd love to see you in there as Commissioner of Baseball.
Yeah.
All right, just so you know. That would be a great thing. Well, let me get what's on my mind, because you guys all know I promote some things. George, I don't know if you can get this. Can you get this Howard Hanna? Oh, this is Bill Russo up at Howard Hanna, a good friend of mine, runs the office in Upper St. Clair. And this is his event, the Children's Hospital Free Care Fund. They're having a special on Sunday the 25th, starting at noon. It costs $35 per person. You have a buffet and open bar throughout the game. and you can win everything from Apple iPod, laptop computers. Thanks, Matt. I appreciate it. 50-50 raffle, basket of cheer. All you need to do is call the Howard Hanna Upper St. Clair office, 412-833-3600, extension 222 or extension 233. And I could give you the names, Frankie Kunselman, Buzz Pasquini, or call my buddy Bill Russo up there and tell him Al Levine sent you there. So just trying to help these guys out. It's Sunday. It's for a great cause, Children's Hospital Free Care Fund. Make sure you're there. Oh, by the way, there's a Pittsburgh-Cleveland game. We'll talk football a little later, but go Steelers. So have some fun with that. Then I want to tell you about we do another show at Level 20. And, you know, during this Thanksgiving season, I'm thankful that we all got to meet. I'm thankful for meeting Chip. I'm thankful that Mike Migliore, who quit the show, introduced us all. I'm thankful for Matt helping us out. Big George is on the camera here. He's putting it right in here, trying to make me not look so large. So I appreciate that. It's always fun. And then we have Aaron and Devin Shea. Aaron Ward is one of the best people running this show here. Same with Devin. I know I'm a producer here, but I can't hold a candle to either one of them. They do a heck of a job here. And what gets to the point is at Level 20, they run from other jobs, other places. They gather up cameras and equipment. I don't know if I've told them, but I appreciate everything they do, and I get a lot of great feedback on how well we look, how well produced the show is. They make Chip and I look like professionals, so we appreciate it. We're still in the amateur status, so anybody who wants to sponsor the show, call 412-831-3304. But anyhow, we had a great night last night. Sammy Vasquez Jr. is fighting on Saturday night at the Ross Draver Arena there? Yes, it is. And we met Andreas Comallero, and he offered to teach me the Greek gyro diet that made him into a man of steel. He's like a young Greek god, and he got a punch that'll knock out a horse. So you got to come out there that night. There's prices from $30, $60, and it'll be a great night. They even have a concert with the Hobbs sisters. So to Sam Vasquez Sr., here's your promotion, buddy. We're going throughout the whole tri-state area here with people watching the show on public access TV. Even the Chief, here's a shout out to you, bringing some pictures with Jersey Joe Walcott and what was it, Ezra James or
Ezra Charles.
Ezra Charles. So he brought some history there. So here's our boxing little promo, and if we could go to a commercial and get Smoking Jim in here, I'll just hit a period now, and we'll move forward on it, guys. So whatever you think is best out there.
My name's Edward Schmidt. I'm the secretary of the Bethel Park Volunteer Fire Company. We're here this evening preparing our engine number 2 to be delivered to the Broad Channel Volunteer Fire Department in Queens, New York. The members of the Bethel Park Volunteer Fire Company are proud to be assisting in the recovery efforts for Hurricane Sandy, which wreaked havoc on the northeast part of the United States in late October 2012. The Bethel Park Volunteer Fire Company is donating a 1988 Pierce fire engine to the Broad Channel Volunteer Fire Department in Queens, New York. The Broad Channel Fire Department was completely devastated and lost all 3 of its fire engines and its ambulance when Sandy hit. It also had all of its gear and equipment washed away in the floodwaters. The Bethel Park Volunteer Fire Company is donating a 24-year-old fire engine that has been for sale since the delivery of our new fire engine back in January of 2012. This vehicle was not purchased with tax dollars back in 1988, but instead it was purchased entirely from money that was raised in fund drives and from donations from the residents of Bethel Park. The fire company is proud to say that it still holds true today that all of the vehicles owned and operated by them are purchased with money raised by the fire company members and money donated by the residents of Bethel Park. The donated fire engine is being flatbedded to New York at a cost of $2,400, which is being paid by the Terry Farrell Firefighters Fund. This fund is named for New York City firefighter Terry Farrell, who died on 9/11. This fund provides medical, educational, and equipment assistance to firefighters. Donations to help cover shipping costs can be sent to the Terry Farrell Firefighters Fund, 1912 Wantagh Avenue in Wantagh, New York, 11793, or go online to www.terryfund.org. The Bethel Park Volunteer Fire Company is proud to be able to donate this vehicle to a fire company in need. If you wish to help the Bethel Park Volunteer Fire Company, please visit our website at www.bethelparkvfc.com.
Welcome back, folks. Thanks for watching the show. We got our resident NFL scout, Smoking Jim Frazier. He just flew in. He was out of town watching film in another city. You know he watches 6 hours a day of film. Here he is, folks. What's on your mind, Smoking Jim?
Hey, thanks. I apologize, Talking Machine and Chip, for being late. I was actually in Munhall most of the day, running late in Munhall, trying to find some people. That's Charlie Batch's hometown, Steel Valley High School, trying to find some people that seen him play in high school, and most of the people that seen him play has old timers right now. So, but it was very fun. Just a couple things, and you already hit on it, Al. I tell you what, I want to give a shout out to Aaron Ward and Devin Shea. I tell you what, I've been doing this a long time. What they do for us over in level 20 is outstanding. I tell you what, wonder what makes those two folks tick. They do an excellent job. Really appreciate it. Wouldn't be able to do it without them. And gotta say a little shout out to Chip's beautiful wife, Stephanie. And I tell you what, she got me spending money on a book. She gave me an author, James Patterson, Alex Cross. I actually seen the movie, but had no idea it was in book form. So I tell you what, I've already read the back and front covers. So if I read a page or two a day, by the end of the year, I'll get through this book. It was very expensive. But, hey, real quickly, Woodland Hills in North Allegheny plays this weekend for the championship. And both of those teams are the top two teams in the state. How I know it is because both of them beat Gateway. Gateway is probably the third best team in the state. Gateway doesn't lose to a Texas A&M, a Baylor, a Stanford. They're not losing the teams they shouldn't get beat by. So it should be a great, great game. And as I promised Chip yesterday, I got to give my Woodland Hills story. It's 25 years of Woodland Hills. Woodland Hills was first year was in 1987. That was the year I had two brothers that were great, great running backs for Gateway. One of my brothers was a running back on that Gateway team. Back in 87, Gateway was ranked in the top 10 in the nation, USA Today. Gateway was undefeated. Gateway had the #1 player in the country, according to USA Today. He was National Player of the Year, Curtis Bray, a year after Emmitt Smith won National Player of the Year, 2 years after Jeff George won USA Today Player of the Year. And, of course, my dad was the president of the Parent Boosters. And before the game, my dad rented an airplane, and it flew over the stadium prior to kickoff, and it says Gateway #1, and that forged the rivalry. 25,000 people jammed into Turtle Creek Stadium on a Saturday afternoon, and the nation seeing Gateway get upset by Woodland Hills, who went on to play for the championship that year and lost. So that's my Woodland Hills story. Good luck to North Allegheny and Woodland Hills. I hate both your schools.
Thanks, Smoking Jim. We appreciate what's on your mind.
It's funny that you mentioned that story, and the reason why Jim mentioned that was last Friday I was at the Woodland Hills Upper St. Clair game, and Upper St. Clair was a odds-on favorite to win that game. Nobody had scored on them in the playoffs. They had pitched 2 shutouts the previous 2 weeks. And Woodland Hills took it to them. They were up 21-0 halfway through the first quarter, and I was really very impressed. And I was more impressed by the fans in the stands than I was with anything that Woodland Hills was doing on the field. Now, of course, they took apart USC by piece, and that was a very good Upper St. Clair team. I thought Upper St. Clair was going to rematch with North Allegheny for the title this year, but Woodland Hills took them to task. But the fans there have just so much passion for their team. It was really, truly one of the most entertaining evenings I've ever spent watching football. I sat there among the Woodland Hills boosters and everything. But, when you watch this championship game this Friday, I'd like to talk about a quarterback named Leftwich, and he does not play for the Steelers. And this kid, Mac Leftwich, is a quarterback for North Allegheny. Did something last week against Seneca Valley that hasn't been done in the Whippeals since Terrell Pryor was a senior. And he put up over, I think he threw for 5 touchdown passes. He put up obscene numbers of passing, rushed for 84 yards. He himself took apart Seneca Valley this past weekend while his coach, Art Walker, allowed them to run up the score with, a minute and 30 seconds left. But, the thing that amazes me is Mac Leftwich is just such an amazing athlete. And if you want to see a hell of a quarterback, watch that game Friday afternoon. But, it amazes me that a kid as talented as he is got a scholarship that he's taken to Stephen F. Austin University.
Wow.
Where he's going to go play college football. And I'm sitting there, what?
That's in Texas.
What? Why is he going to a school that nobody will ever watch or ever see? And it's simply because the young man is only 5'10", and that scares away the Division I schools. They want 6 foot, 6'5". There are prototypes for the types of quarterbacks that they want. But, again, it amazes me because this kid has done nothing but electrify crowds and win football games his entire career. And, I kind of wondered, why didn't Pitt recruit this kid? But then again, I guess Pitt doesn't want a winning quarterback.
No.
Do you know who his dad is?
No, I don't.
His dad was the one of the offensive coaches for Pitt a year ago. Which moved into the North Allegheny system as a junior. His dad is now followed Graham to Arizona State, and but Leftwich, I guess he was able to stay behind and pay the mortgage himself.
Well, he might be 18 years old, right?
But even at 5'10", even his daddy don't want him at Arizona State. He got to go to Stephen F. Austin. But like you said, he had a great 2-year career here in Western Pennsylvania.
Yeah, well, at least this Leftwich doesn't trip over the goal line and break his ribs.
We'll talk Steelers in a little bit here. Matter of fact, we may get warmed up right now. Smoking Jim, you ready to talk Steelers? Because we do have to announce to people that, I always call Chip the Prophet Hayner. But you sort of predicted this guy that's signing with the Steelers today, right? I'm not going to steal any of your thunder.
Well, the Steelers are, they really want to go 8-8 because they signed 2 players from Michigan State today. Brian Hoyer, a below average quarterback his entire career in college and far below average in the NFL. And my man Plexico Burress, who should have been signed way back in training camp. So Plex is in great shape. He's ready to go. He was Ben Roethlisberger's best friend. That's why they got rid of him. They had to break up him and Ben. But Plexico Burress was signed today and should help the Steelers out a whole lot because one thing you can't teach Chip, and that was height. He's 6'5", almost 6'6".
Well,
that's brilliant.
And I'll tell you what, I think the purpose for bringing Plexico in is in the red zone. You're not going to be looking for him to stretch the field like you would with a Mike Wallace. But I'll tell you what, you get the ball down in the red zone, and Plex can run a flag pattern, he can run a post pattern, he can actually catch the fade. You just toss the ball up there, and he's proven it time and time again. I actually think it was kind of a smart move on the Steelers' part.
When are we going to start? When are we Al going to start getting some criticism? Like I said, I like Bruce Arians. Bruce Arians did a great job last year of keeping Mike Tomlin's mouth shut. Mike Tomlin didn't make all the blunders that he's making with Haley. How in the world does Haley throw the football 39 times against the Baltimore Ravens when you got a quarterback with 2 broken ribs and a bad shoulder after the 3rd play of the football game? That's inexcusable in that coaching staff.
It's real easy, Smoking Jim. When you're a player's coach and you're their friend, that's what you do. And that's how simple it is.
Well, I can tell you this, historically, if you look at Steeler teams of any era, anytime a Steeler team is throwing the ball 39 times, they're not winning a lot of those games. The Steelers, their forte has always been running games. If you see a Steeler quarterback throw between 20 and 25 passes a game, there's a better than average chance that we're going to win that game. When you got somebody out there throwing the ball 39 times, that's, it doesn't make any sense to me.
And Al, what was the Steelers looking for? A little bit of that old black magic?
They were looking at it. They had it on that first series. Then, how do you explain this? That field looked in pretty good shape, but then there was an old ghost that come up out of the field and tripped Byron. And then, how do you fall down and break your ribs when you hit your shoulder? I mean, there's a conspiracy written all over this thing. And then, how do the announcers throughout the game, and you know how they miss almost everything, they're saying, boy, he looks uncomfortable. And then he's grabbing his rib. He's grabbing his arm. And then he's throwing passes. Every once in a while, he fired one out that was pretty good. Then all of a sudden, he's throwing one 10, 20 yards short when we need it. And then you have a guy who gets alligator arms. I talked about it a little bit last night because Smoking Jim turned me on to that. That's why he's an NFL scout here. That Mike Wallace, okay, it was a bad pass, but most of you guys and young kids that watch this show that are receivers, don't you go after the ball, even if it's not right to you in your chest or hitting you in the head and you're missing it or you can't get your feet down in the end zone? Sure, he didn't try, so you can blame Leftwich for the bad pass. He had many of them.
We got a solution to the problem. We ought to lean on Roger Goodell. We ought to suspend Heinz Field for tripping the player, being an egregious repeat offender. But the one thing that the Steelers' problems, they ran the ball so well. The day that Antonio Brown went down, he has made such an impact. His absence in the field. Mike Wallace, he made that nice catch against the Giants, and you're thinking, okay, maybe this is the Mike Wallace that we've seen, 2.5 years ago. But apparently that was just a hiccup or something.
It was an aberration.
But Antonio Brown, he was the team MVP last year, and ever since he's been gone, it's amazing that the running game, isn't as effective, and it's because he's not stretching the field. They're stacking the box and they're shutting down the run. And Mike Adams may be a great run blocker, but somebody needs to teach him how to pass protect.
It's not going to happen. There's a gentleman sitting at the table that called him soft. Luckily, he got a steak dinner there before they didn't throw him out this year. But anyhow, Mike Adams, when you watch him, it's almost dangerous to him and any other guy that's coming over to block the horses coming in because they got a full head of steam. And, it looks like somebody's going to get killed, a running back, a quarterback.
And if you're going to throw the ball 40 times, you're going to lose one of the most effective parts of your passing game because Heath Miller is no longer going to be able to run patterns. He's going to come back and watch Mike Adams' side, to help chip down because I tell you what, Mike Adams got owned by, what's his name, Kugler? Kruger.
Freddie Krueger Jr.
Yeah, he absolutely owned Mike Adams. And, his pass blocking skills need a lot of work. I thought, maybe watching the first few games and all the run blocking he was doing, that maybe Marcus Gilbert may not make it back on the team, but he does looking like a better option as time goes on.
Marcus Gilbert isn't that much better, but I still like the blocking and tackling the offensive line does. And Mike Adams isn't really adept at doing that blocking and tackling because they're past him. You got to at least have a guy in front of you or beside you.
Yeah, with as big as he is, you figure he can fall down in front of somebody.
Well,
at least have to run around him.
Hold it, Max Starks has that down. That's why he's my man. He gets in the way, and then he even attacks a few people. And then Willie Colon, they caught him again on holding. Can you guys believe that? They actually caught him holding one time. I didn't count. I lost track of how many other times, but we did have a good running game going. The 28th worst run defense, and we're not running the ball with an injured quarterback. I'll repeat it again, folks. It should have happened with running.
Really what the game boiled down to, and it was a typical Steelers-Ravens game. The Steelers' defense was just absolutely stellar. They didn't allow the Baltimore Ravens to score a single offensive touchdown. The points that they did score, the 2 field goals that they kicked, were off of mistakes by the Steelers' offense. The Steelers' special teams gave up a 63-yard punt return by Jacoby Jones. But, the games that the Steelers and the Ravens play, they always seem to be 3-point affairs. And, the teams that make the most mistakes generally end up losing. And we made a number of mistakes that, in the overall scheme of things, well, that one mistake didn't win or lose a game. And it usually comes down to 1 or 2 plays, and that's where it is. Willie Cologne's holding penalty, that killed us. You've got a couple of fumbles, and that's all you need. These teams, that's really the big difference. There's probably 2 or 3 plays in the game. Had we not made the mistakes, usually it used to be that the Ravens would make them in the past, but it seems to be the bug that's biting us now.
Well, at least Charlie Batch is going to step in like I predicted last week. All of you that watched the show, you heard me say that Leftwich would start and get hurt. I didn't know it'd be on the first play, and I thought that Tomlin would have the intelligence that pull him out of the game. Charlie Batch was wearing a uniform for the first time this year. He looked good in the uniform from what I saw, but he wasn't quite warmed up. That's who should have been in there. And that's what we need. We need those dink and dunk passes. With Plexico there, you're forgetting that was 6'5", 5 yards away from the line of scrimmage. How hard is that to play pitch and catch if you're 38 years old? And I want that against Cleveland.
And I tell you what, I got to talk to my good friend Eric Metz, another Gateway graduate, who is the agent of Mike Adams. And I have to ask Eric Metz, what's the over and under? How many plays until we get to see Brian Hoyer play quarterback? Because Charlie Batch is a brittle brother at 37 years old.
Well, and I know Charlie has, taken his lumps, and, there's a reason why he hasn't been a starter for a long time. But I think the only advantage that Charlie Batch gives the Steelers over Leftwich, Byron Leftwich, is the fact that he's going to get the ball out faster, and he's going to have to because, with Mike Adams not providing any passing protection on his backside, if he doesn't, he's going to end up with 4 broken ribs.
Well, you know what? With Charlie there, the one nice thing, he doesn't telegraph his passes, okay? When you're watching a game with Leftwich, you know what he's doing. Those defensive backs, you can see him ready to pounce on them with that. And that'll be a little bit of a difference. He does know the offense. Look, he's helping the coach, so they say, with the quarterbacks. Whether it's true or not, Smoking Jim, I don't know, because there's no youthful quarterback. Oh, wait, we do have one now. And he'll be playing. They listen to you. Thanks for watching the show. Smoking Jim told you about that.
He's one of Belichick's cast-offs.
Yeah. 3 years behind Brady.
But, hey, we've spent a fair amount of time on the Steelers.
Well, before you go to something else, you think there was any chance the Steelers was going to call Hines Ward to come back and help out? Because I think NBC could have spared him.
No, because you know what? He's so valuable. The 1 minute that he has on air, that is so valuable. It's worth millions, I'm telling you.
And I'll be honest with you, Hines is perfectly okay carrying a microphone. You know what? He's away from the game now, and I think he's happy right where he's at. But, to touch on something Alan talked about a little bit, last night we had a great show down at the Level 20 Sports Lounge, and Colin and his crew did an amazing job. And we were swamped by Team Vasquez.
Wow.
Sammy Vasquez Jr., this young man, I was very, very impressed with what he brings to the table. This is a young man that's just started his pro boxing career. He turned pro in April, and he's already 5-0. His 6th fight's going to be this Saturday night. And I'll tell you what, you talk to this young man, and he trains hard. Family's the most important thing to him. And from what Jim and Mike Mig tell me, that this young man is destined to be a future champion, world champion. And, one of the things that he told me last night is that he's been trying to reach out to Paul Spadafora. He has a lot of respect for Paul Spadafora, said he's probably one of the best defensive fighters that he's ever seen. But one of Sammy's entourage asked me to give a little shout out. If anybody out there has got the ear of Paul Spadafora, hey, you know what? You want to do a young and up-and-coming boxer a big favor and give him fight this kid. We would give you one hell of a match, and he might give you your first loss.
And I tell you what, I love Mexican fighters. You guys know I love boxing. I'm a big boxing fan, and Sammy told me that his dad, a lot of the Mexican families, there's a lot of kids in that family. Sammy's dad had 14 brothers and sisters, and they grow up tough fighting over that last bowl of refried beans. But I tell you what, if you watch any HBO, you watch any Showtime, any of the boxing, right now the Mexican fighters is really getting it done on a worldwide level. So Sammy Vasquez, been watching him ever since he was amateur. Tough, hard-nosed, got a lot of pride in his heritage. And I tell you what, Paul Spadafora is an old man right now. And I, for one, don't want to see those two fight. Those two are legendary Pittsburgh fighters. I like to see the Pittsburgh fighters go ahead and beat people from other states and other nations.
But don't you think, with somebody like Sammy, to get himself on the national spot, he's going to have to fight somebody with a name. And, people that watch his fights, I notice a tendency in the boxing game these days is that nobody wants to fight anybody that's any good. Everybody wants to duck the good fighters, and give this kid a break. Let him earn a living for his fiancée and his two young children.
But I tell you what, like I told Sammy, his entourage is going to grow when all the brothers from Menneson get out of jail that he grew up with. But, hey, listen, I'll be with Paul Spadafora on December 1st at Mountaineer. Paul Spadafora is fighting on Roy Jones Jr.'s promotion. I tell you what, I'm going to be out there. I'm going to be hiding all the liquor before the fight. So Spadafora don't have any temptation. But afterwards, we're going to have a lot of fun at the after party, because if anybody knows how to party, it's the Pittsburgh Kid.
Hey, is Al McCauley still managing him?
No, Al McCauley is, next time you see Spadafora, it will be in the court system. Spadafora is still under contract, but he left Al McCauley to go with the Yankellos and Roy Jones Jr. So it's an ongoing thing. Stay tuned in the court system. I tell you what, because Al McCauley wants his money, and Mike Akery, who used to be the promoter. So Paul Spadafora didn't realize that your contract has to expire before you sign a contract with somebody else. But he's been, this is his second fight with Roy Jones Jr. Promotions, TNT Promotions. So you're going to see Paul Spadafora. You're going to see a bench warrant for Paul Spadafora.
Hey, Smoking Jim, do you think maybe he's following what the college coaches do? Because it doesn't matter what kind of contract you have if you're a college football coach. We've talked about that many times. Maybe he was just misled. He's watching our show and TV and the sports out there with football. He just thought he could do that.
Well, like we always talked about before, he's from McKees Rocks, which is Stowe Rocks High School, and most of the kids from Stowe Rocks can't read.
That's not a public announcement, folks. But we appreciate that. And since we're still talking boxing, if you can't make it to this fight on Saturday night, go to Pittsburgh Sportsline at level 20 on Monday. Next Monday, we'll be there, and guess who's going to be there? Sammy Jr. is going to be there. We're going to have Andreas the Greek come in because he's going to win his first fight. We didn't even touch on that. This guy is a young Greek god that eats gyros. They have 6 gyros companies around, so you can frequent it.
You gotta meet.
They're not sponsoring them yet. When they sponsor us, then we'll tell you the name. But I've already been told I can try one of their gyros there. But come to Pittsburgh Sportsline at level 20. Get the $7 burger and fries. Thanks to Tracy and Colin. They put on a heck of a meal. People were eating wings. There was so much food going on. And then we have a tradition where there's almost a birthday every time we're there or we're celebrating something. So the Vasquez's daughter, Bria, she had her birthday there. They had birthday cake, 18th birthday. So there you go with the Vasquez. Great family. They need some help with promoting and sponsoring this stuff and getting the word out. So when you watch this on YouTube, spread this around about Sammy Vasquez Jr. He's a future world champion. That's what's been predicted of him. And he's a great person, great fighter, and he works out and lives in Colorado so he can train in the mile-high conditions up there. So think about the dedication that he has, folks. And he's a Pittsburgh guy here. He'll be the newest coming of the Pittsburgh kid here. A good kid, actually.
Well, I tell you what, you guys want to see family and friends come out. You've already seen it. We already seen it, Al, you and I, with Sammy Vasquez. But I tell you what, if anybody can outnumber him as far as family and friends, it's the Greek. I tell you what, when he was fighting amateurs, you didn't know that there was that many Greek people still in southwestern Pennsylvania. They come out, they love it. I tell you what, Andreas goes to the body like Rocky Marciano. But I tell you what, back about 3 years ago, you guys probably remember, on a sad note, on St. Patrick's Day, we had a Golden Glove match. Andreas had a third-round knockout. I think the guy is still down. But his cousin went to the south side. I don't know if you guys remember, got real drunk, and he was the one that the police blew away in his car that time. That was his cousin.
Okay.
And
I know what you're talking about.
I remember that.
But they used to come 300 strong, man. Very supportive of Andreas, and same way with Sammy. So, yeah, come on out and check them out, guys.
Level 20, 7:30. Chief, you know to come out there. Bring some friends out there. Bring some of the Post-Gazette guys that I know. They can come and talk. Maybe we'll interview them, and I don't want them talking about me because then these guys will hear some more stories.
And hey, come down to that Level 20 next Monday, and then again next Tuesday night while we're here. Smoke and Jim will give me the report back from Heinz Field.
Right.
I mean, one of the things that I'm really kind of a little distressed about is I will be leaving to go out of town Friday morning to go visit my mother-in-law in hurricane-torn New Jersey. We're gonna go visit and maybe help out there if we can, my wife and I. But
hold it, stop in North Wildwood.
Say hi to Hope.
Say hi to my sister Hope. The brother-in-law's out there drilling oil and gas, so he can't be around. She may need a little help.
Jim will be down at Heinz Field on Friday for the Whitfield finals. And there's going to be a lot of compelling games, a lot of storylines. You got North Allegheny and Woodland Hills. And North Allegheny's going for their third consecutive Whitfield championship. Will be the first time that's happened, if it happens, in the Quad A. Personally, myself, I'm rooting for Woody Hills. I like the underdog in this matchup. You've got Tyler Boyd and the Clareton Bears set to break the state record for consecutive wins. They've got 59 in a row. They tied Central Bucks West, who set the previous record at 59 consecutive wins. This will be win number 60. It will be a state record for Pennsylvania. Another state record that may fall, a freshman running back that few of you may know about runs for the University of Pitt because they don't really play him. Russell Shell holds the state record for most yards rushing in a season. There's a young man that plays for the Washington Little Prexies. And he is within 100 yards of Russell Shell's state season rushing record. The young man's got over 2,600 yards rushing in 12 games. Last Friday night in the semifinals, he rushed for 293 yards and 4 touchdowns. That is absolutely amazing against a very strong South Fayette team. Now, I believe Washington's going up against Aliquippa, and Aliquippa is a very, very strong team. 2 11-0 teams that are going head-to-head, and that'll be a great matchup. And then the AAA championship, you've got West Allegheny, you've got Bob Palco going for his 6th Whitfield championship. He's the father of Tyler Palco, going up against the West Mifflin. And, these are probably the 2 strongest teams in AAA, even though, Thomas Jefferson went into the semifinals Friday night undefeated, but, brighter minds than mine picked them not to make it that far. They didn't think that they were that strong of a team, and it was a head scratcher for me because how can you not be that strong of a team when you're undefeated? But apparently somebody knew a little something more than I did because West Allegheny beat Thomas Jefferson last Friday. So there's some very compelling matchups, some great football. I know it'll be on Root Sports, or go down to Heinz Field. I'm going to tell you something. Watch the Woodland Hills fans. You will laugh your hind end off. They are truly a joy to be around. And I said I had more fun hanging out with the Woodland Hills fans at that game than I can ever remember in a football game recently.
Speaking of hanging out, Smoking Jim, what are you doing on Friday there? What's your function there? I've got to get some insight.
It's
We always
Smokin'
like
Jim's
to
barbecue.
We like to get some insight on Smoking Jim. He's a talented writer. I assume he was writing an article for some newspaper for hanging around Munhall today. I'm going to assume that if he's trying to get a story, here's the guy to see. And what's your story on Friday?
Well, I'll be covering all four the high school WPIL championship games for the newspaper. And so I'm very excited. I'll be there from 8 o'clock in the morning to roughly around midnight. And I tell you what, the food in the press box is second to none. All brother cooks, all black cooks, man. I tell you what, man, I'm going to eat. And I tell you what, I'll probably take my nap during the West Mifflin game. But all the other three games, I'll make sure I'm wide awake.
Hey, can you get me in? What time's dinner?
Well, it starts off, brother, about 9:30
in the morning. What do you
omelet.
eat? An omelet.
Steak and omelet, man.
They
make it special for me. I'll go down on the field probably around 9 o'clock for pregame warm-ups. One of my best friends is the trainer, most beautiful woman in the world, Tammy Ridgely. She she's from Pensacola, Florida. She introduced me a few years ago to Herschel Walker, so it was a dream come true to be able to interview Herschel. You know, he got split personalities now, so I did 2 interviews with Herschel, the great
Hey,
one.
where can we get that article? I want to check out those articles.
You got to get it. Which one, the first or the second
I
one?
take both, buddy. This guy's one of the most talented writers that you ever meet. He has a self-depreciating type of humor here. You don't realize the talent that he has.
Those big words is tough for general studies.
All right, well, he's a great guy, and he's a great writer. And you have to check out that paper when you go to YouTube or whatever. We'll try to get something hooked up. I think it's like a Courier or something there. It's been around for a long time. It started in Pittsburgh. It's a great paper. They're still alive in Pittsburgh. They got great people like Smoking Jim there. And I think one of the other guys is this Bill Neal, who I met. I haven't seen him with a couple other guys, but we'll let you guys talk about boxing at another time there. But Bill Neal's a hell of a guy, and
yes,
they put out nice articles, and they help the community. They're always out there in the community, so look for these guys. If you can see Smoking Jim on Friday, just go up to him and tell him you see him all over public access TV. We're all in the communities all around. Look for us on Verizon, all of you that have Verizon. It's 32 on Verizon, 7 on Comcast, and we're even here in the city of Pittsburgh. You can see it on Verizon if you have Fios. So check out the show. Tell your friends about it. We'll be up on YouTube by the end of the week, so you'll see some of these other shows here too. What else, Smoking Jim?
Well, hey, you know, one thing I wanted to touch on is last night, Alan touched a little bit on the NHL situation.
66 days now.
And, you know, 66, and the next 66 will be just as painful as the first 66. And the negotiations are going nowhere. But the thing I found interesting is, you know, you got some of these players that are going over into these foreign countries and deciding to skate. And one of the, you know, the biggest drawing ticket in the NHL, Sid Crosby, you know, it's kind of cost prohibitive for him to go and play in one of these other countries because he's under contract for the Penguins. And, you know, the owners knew what they were doing when they signed all these guys to $100 million contracts.
Yes, they
because
did, Chip.
They've got to buy insurance to insure their contracts. And, they, you know,
Right.
for Sid Crosby, it's $400,000 a month for him to buy an insurance policy.
Hold it. This is the magic number today.
But
Ed Reed, 400,000.
That's right.
Sid.
That's right.
But my
What's the
point
cash five?
being is, you know, like here in the United States where they're playing hockey, they've got the best medical care, they've got the best facilities, they've got the best equipment, you know, the best travel and accommodations and everything. You know, you're going to these, you know, you're playing in Europe, you're playing in Russia. You know, the travel is you know, you don't know if the plane that goes up is going to come down in a hurry or whether it's going to land on its tires. Claude Giroux, who was one of the Flyers' top players, I guess he would be their star player. He is now being looked at by the Dr. Carrick, who is the same guy that looked at Sid Crosby, because playing in Europe, he got concussed, and they're saying that it's just a minor neck injury. Doesn't that sound a little bit familiar? And so here's a guy who had, a contract here. He puts his life at risk. He could have put his entire career, because you're over there and, you've probably got doctors you don't even understand. They're not speaking your language, nor do they have the facilities that are available to them here. So, you're putting not only your career at risk, you're putting your life at risk, because, you're doing this to get, a little bit of money. And is it really worth it? And, does the NHL want its premier players going into these other countries and becoming permanently injured and not being able to bring a better quality product here to the United States? So, I want to tell the owners, I want to tell the players, find a way to come to a compromise. Do it soon. You're hurting the industry. I'll tell you when this strike is going to end. When the corporate sponsorship decides to start pulling their money from the owners, that's when the owners are going to blink, because these people, they pay millions and tens of millions of dollars for these luxury boxes to wine and dine their corporate clients. None of that's happening right now, and they've paid all this money into these teams, and they want some return on their dollar. They're the ones that are going to put enough heat on the owners to force them to come to a compromise.
Yeah, but Chip, you're forgetting one of the points. They just signed a TV deal. They get paid that money whether they get it or not. So what will happen is there'll be another year of a TV contract that the players won't get any of that money. So this is part of their strategy. These owners are very smart. Most of them have other businesses. They're not like us. We're trying to figure out what 1 + 1 is. And Smoking Jim, you're the college-educated guy here. I'm not going to insult you and ask, but that's part of the problem. It's pure negotiating. They thought they had the upper hand. Whatever they're losing, they're going to lose, but the players end up losing too. Strikes don't help anybody. I've been through them myself. We're not going to tell those stories,
what happens
but
when
everybody loses.
What happens when Consol Energy decides to say, you know what, I'm going to stop writing the checks for you guys.
Here, if they don't settle this shortly, see you in the summer, see you about June or July. They'll have a nice little signing deal. It'll happen. They've done it before. This is historical.
Yeah, and you know what? And the third time that this sport is going to have, I lose a season. This is the third time they've had a lockout. I mean, they're never going to get the thing that makes the NFL work, the thing that makes Major League Baseball work, is they sign multi-billion-dollar television contracts. Hockey is always going to be a regional sport in the United States. They've got this. They tried to spread this game into Florida. You know what? The only ice you find in Florida is in drinks, okay? I mean, why are you trying to move the game there? Come on. You have a hockey team in Phoenix, Arizona. The temperature gets up to 110 degrees there, okay? I mean, these are not places where this sport's going to thrive. And what's ultimately going to end up happening is, when this is all said and done, there may be 3 or 4 less teams playing hockey, which is going to hurt the owners. It's going to hurt everybody, players as well.
Hey, Chip, like I said last night, there's $3.3 billion that these owners split out. The players only get $1.9 million. Okay, and I know that's only. And there's a wide variance of what they're negotiating about. $700 million in hard costs, then another $700 million that who knows where it goes. But that's their business. My thing is, when you're telling players, here's what you have to take. The owners could have presented all this when they first started. They did not.
None of that matters. Here's what they need to do: play hockey. Okay.
Well,
all this other stuff, I don't care. Okay, get out on the ice, play hockey. Let's quit all the.
They're not going to do it.
Stuff. I want to use flowery language, but I'm going to refrain so they don't have to censor me.
No censor tonight there. You have any pirate thoughts here, Chip? We haven't covered pirates yet.
Well, there's not really much to talk about right now. I mean, there's not a lot happening, and people can complain, the pirates aren't spending any money. The pirates are going to spend money, but, spending money isn't the solution to all the problems that ail the Pirates, because you look at the teams that spent hundreds of millions of dollars last year, and what did they get for it? Let's look at the Miami Marlins. It's a fiasco right there. There's plenty of other teams. They're going to ultimately end up spending money, but they have to spend money on people that are going to fit into the team and fit into the plan that they have moving forward. And, I look at what's out there on the free agent market right now, and, the free agent market is just such a crapshoot. And I don't see anybody on as a free agent right now that I say, you know what, if the Pirates sign him, we're guaranteed to win 115 games this year. It's just not out there, because what ended up happening this year is most of the top dollar free agents got re-signed by their teams during the year, so that they never even became on the market, and they're locked up. So right now, November 20th, there's not a lot to talk about, because there's not really a lot going on. Maybe in another month or so, we get into January and the winter meetings are done, we'll see something happening. But I do predict that there will probably be some type of a trade, and the Pirates will package up a number of prospects, or maybe somebody off their roster to get. They definitely need to do something to upgrade their pitching staff. Michael McHenry, they seem to be, we all know he's not the catcher of the future, but catchers are few and far between. There's 2 or 3 real good ones, and then there's a bunch of also-rans. So, there's plenty of problems that the Pirates need to address, and, I think they'll do it, but they're going to do it in their own good time.
That sounds good. Hey, we didn't touch on Penn State. McGloin, we were sort of beating him up last week for throwing his players under the bus and all this other stuff. And look, he's Offensive Player of the Week. Like I said, he's a young kid. He got good coaching where now he's a quarterback. Maybe he'll even be able to walk on as an NFL quarterback. Who knows? But he did play a heck of a game. He almost set a record. He had 395 yards passing. That performance, I was hoping they'd give him a chance to break the record for how he's been maligned and how Penn State's been beat up about that.
He did a great job of bouncing back. And I'll tell you what, Bill O'Brien, and in my book, that guy deserves to be Coach of the Year, but I know what they're going to end up doing is they're going to give it to Urban Meyers, because, Urban Meyers on a team that can't go anywhere this year is undefeated. Which kind of makes a little bit. I think really 2 of the best teams in the Big Ten right now are the 2 teams that are ineligible. And unfortunately, neither of them are going to get a chance to play for the title. You look at the Wisconsin team; they're going to win their division and play for the Big Ten championship, and they're behind Penn State and they're behind Ohio State as well. Ohio State and Penn State, they were sanctioned, deservedly so. They got to take their medicine and,
Except for the wins in the free report, but I don't want to argue about that. But I did want to bring up a point. We touched some of this last night, and I wanted to bring up, I think Notre Dame's going to win out, of course. It's easy. So will they still be ranked number 1? And will they play in the championship? And we don't need to get in all the BS and BCS.
Well, you know what? Here's what I think is going to happen.
Just as a thought here,
because Notre Dame's got 1 game left, and they're going to be playing against USC, and USC is not going to have Matt Barkley playing, which is their star quarterback. So more than likely, Notre Dame's going to beat USC. Now, Alabama is going to play Auburn this week, which is their biggest rival, and Georgia's playing Georgia Tech, and Oregon's playing Oregon
Keep it short,
State.
Chip. We're running out of time.
But Notre Dame's not going to play the following week, and Alabama's going to play Georgia for the SEC title. So I'm going to say a one-loss team is going to leap Scott.
All right, well, you guys are on the record that you think Alabama will be number 1, Notre Dame will be number 2, or another?
Yeah, an undefeated Notre Dame will be number 2 over Alabama.
Hey,
that's what I'm predicting.
Happy Thanksgiving. You just got to heard from Chip the Prophet Hayner. He's predicting, and that's an O at the end of his name, not an E if you're reading the things. Smokin' Jim Frazier always provides his fiction and fact from Smokin' Jim's Almanac and other insights. Go up to him on Friday in between meals. This is Al Levine, the Talking Machine. Thanks for watching our show. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Drive safely.